Today we're going to work on swapping out the dead axle on our homemade go-kart here with a live axle. Hopefully to give us better traction and better braking. With the dead axle setup, we're only getting power to one wheel and only braking to one wheel as well. The other benefit to having the live axle versus the dead axle is I'm hoping we're going to get rid of those trenches that this thing likes to dig in the backyard. Having just the one wheel turning tends to dig nice long trenches in there when it spins. It's got a 6.5 horsepower Predator 212cc engine purchased from Harbor Freight on it, and I think it's just a little bit too much power for the one wheel. So I'm hoping with the live axle setup versus the dead axle, we're going to get better traction, better braking, and overall more fun. Get a closer look here at the dead axle setup. Basically what we've got is a wheel with some 5/8 bearings in it, a 5/8 hub, and then a sprocket, all kind of held together with some brakes that go all the way through from the sprocket through the wheel there and kind of bolt everything together. Now, this setup works pretty well, except when you get into some uneven ground or wet grass or mud. Then that one wheel just tends to spin and you don't really go anywhere. Here are the live axle components that we're going to use to swap out the dead axle setup on our home-built go-kart here. These parts were all purchased from go-powersports.com. They were purchased as individual parts. Go Powersports also offers a complete live axle kit that comes with everything that you see here, with the addition of a sprocket and a band brake assembly. The kit actually doesn't come with the hub there that I bought to mount the existing sprocket that I currently have that I'm going to reuse to, along with a band brake that I'm going to mount to that hub as well. But I purchased a set of tires here. They came as a set. They've got 1-inch hole with a keyway there to match the 1-inch live axle. Got a 40-inch live axle with a 1/4-inch keyway cut into it. Got a set of 1/4-inch keys that fit that keyway. They fit right in there, just like that. And then each of the components that uses the key fits those as well and locks everything into place. I've got a set of bearings here with all of the mounting hardware as well. The bearings came with these weldable mounting brackets and some locking collars there. The locking collars fit on the live axle there, when they've got some set screws that you can use to lock those into place so everything doesn't shift back and forth. I've got this hub here with the 1-inch bore in it and the keyway there to fit the live axle. I'm going to mount the sprocket to this and then the band brake on the other end also. I did purchase some additional locking collars in addition to the ones that came with the axle kit. These are a little bit different design. They've got a screw on either end there and clamp down on the live axle. These also have a keyway cut into them So they're a little bit different design, but I think between the 6 collars there, we'll have plenty of collars there to lock everything together. So those are the parts. They look pretty good. Everything came from GoPowerSports.com, as I said. I would highly recommend them for all of your parts needs. They've got everything that you could possibly need to build a complete cart from scratch. They also offer many different kits. Like I said, they've got the live axle kit there that comes with everything that you would need to do a complete rear end swap out of a go-kart. They've also got many complete carts available for purchase as well. First things we're going to do is we're going to unbolt the engine here to be able to make way for the new live axle components. So that'll be the first step. We're going to remove the engine, and then we're going to remove the existing dead axle setup, and then we're going to start placing the live axle components. Okay, with the engine now removed, we're going to start removing the existing dead axle assembly. So I'll get out my grinder and grind some welds and get that guy off of there. So the dead axle assembly has been completely removed now. I ground off all the welds, got rid of that. So we've got some clear open spot there to start mocking up the new live axle. So the next step is going to be assembling all of those parts over there, mocking that up. I'm going to run through how to assemble the bearing kit, and then we'll mock up the entire axle assembly, do some test fitting on the cart, and then go from there. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is to run through the assembly on these bearings. So I got this bearing kit here, and each bearing goes together with a set of these flanges. Everything gets bolted together with the nuts and bolts here. So these bearings actually go together like this and get sandwiched together between these two flanges. So you got a flange that goes on each side of the bearing, and then they get sandwiched together as one piece like that. And then we've got these brackets that are going to get welded right to the frame, and the bearings actually get bolted right to each one of these brackets, like so. So the bolts go through the bearing like that, and then you've got a nut that goes on the back side of the bearing, like so. So 3 bolts per bearing, and then a nut on the back side, and everything will get tightened together. I'm just going to hand tighten these for now until we get everything mocked up and exactly where we want it to be. And then I'll go back through and tighten these up. I think they are 1/2-inch bolts and a 1/2-inch nut on the back. And that's how they go together. So there's a completed set right there. And I'll go ahead and do the other one. One more bracket, one more bearing, sandwiched together. And the bracket goes on the bracket. 1, 2, 3 bolts. And then nuts on the back side. That's how they go together. None of the parts came with instructions on how to put them together, so a little bit of trial and error and got that all figured out. So I figured I'd post a video to show everybody else who might buy the same kit from go-powersports.com how it goes together. So the next thing I'm going to do is to start the mock-up of the axle. So I've got 40-inch live axle here. And we're going to start fitting the parts on here. So I'll unscrew the threaded end of the nut. Each one comes with a nut and a washer. I'm going to go ahead and fit this hub. This hub I bought to fit the sprocket and brake drum that I've already got that I used on the dead axle. We're going to use it on the live axle. Alright, so I've mounted the existing sprocket that I had along with the brake drum to the hub that we had. You can see it sandwiched there in the middle, that's the hub. And then we've got the sprocket and then the brake drum there. And then we've got a band for the brake drum that goes around the brake drum there. And when you pull the cable, it squeezes this together and stops the hub. Alright, so we're going to fit the sprocket onto the hub. And then we're going to fit the bearings onto the axle. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other side. Take the nut off the threaded end on the other side. Put the bearing on this side onto the axle. And then I'm going to fit one of these locking collars onto the axle as well. Same thing with the other side. We'll slide a locking collar on there. Then I've got these split locking collars here that come apart, and these will actually, I can fit on the axle after I get everything on to lock everything else in place. I don't have to slide them on right now. I'll take a tire, I'll slide it on this end of the axle here. There's that. Take the other tire, I'll slide it onto the axle over here. And that's how it goes together. And there it is. We've got the entire live axle assembly with the sprocket and the brake drum there and the bearings and the wheels on either side. I'm going to go ahead and bring it over to the cart now and kind of mock everything up and see how it fits. So I placed the axle assembly underneath the cart there and positioned it where I want it in relation to everything else. And what I'm going to do is mark the frame with a tape measure. I got a tape measure here. And I'm going to mark the frame where I want to weld the brackets up. So I've got a tape measure and a pencil, and I'm just going to make a mark there on either side so that I get it even. And since I know the frame is square, if I use the tape measure and just mark it on the frame there and tack it up, we should be in business. And then we'll figure out what to do next. I'm not too concerned with the axle spacing to either side just yet, because everything's not locked into place yet with the locking collar, so everything will slide back and forth. But once we get to the point where we want to center everything up and lock it into place, we'll put those locking collars on and tighten everything down, and then it won't slide back and forth. But I'm going to go ahead and tack those brackets in place. Alright, so the axle is all tacked up there. Just a couple of tacks on either side to hold it in place while we get everything else mocked up. I set the engine on there, and I think I'm going to have to make a couple of frame adjustments there. I want to pull the engine back closer to the sprocket and mount it further back in the frame. I don't want to have to run that much chain. That's quite a stretch there, to run that much chain to keep it mounted where it is. So I'm going to make some additional brackets there and pull it back so it's more in line over the axle, and I can run a shorter length of chain. I've made some frame modifications here. I've reconfigured the motor mount so that I've got a couple of perpendicular pieces of frame there along with the back to mount the motor to. And I've bolted the motor to the brackets, and I haven't welded everything up yet. I'm got the chain on there, and I'm going to make sure that everything is lined up before I go ahead and weld those brackets into place. So everything looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everything spins freely, that the chain looks like it's centered up there. We've got it in a good spot, and then I'll go ahead and weld that in place. I'm going to go ahead and tack the brackets where I need it to be, and we'll go from there. So with the cart supported on a jack stand, I'm going to go ahead and pull off the tire, slide on the locking collar, put the key in the keyway, put the tire back on, and then tighten everything up. So we'll go ahead and do that. Off comes the tire, on goes the locking collar. Loosen up the bolts a little bit there so it'll fit on. We got a keyway there in the axle. Right there. There's a keyway in the locking collar. So we'll line those up. I made a pencil mark on the axle where the hub goes on the wheel. We'll line up the locking collar there. I'm going to slide a key in the keyway. There we go. Slide the locking collar over the key. Get a hammer here, pound the key over a little. There we go. Everything lines up. Alright, now I'm going to use my Allen wrench and tighten up the bolts here on the locking collar. It's a lot easier to get to this way with the wheel off I'm not having to reach under there and work with the Allen wrench inside the wheel, inside the hub of the tire, inside the rim. Tighten these guys up. Alright, now we'll slide the tire on. Lining that keyway in the rim of the tire with the keyway on the axle. And it'll slide right in there. Use my hammer, coax it in there a little bit. There we go. Alright, now it's important to make sure that you've got the right amount of room left between the axle and the end of the hub on the rim. You want just a little bit sticking over the end of the axle so that when you tighten the nut down, everything clamps together. So I'm going to slide another key in that keyway there for the axle and the hub. And we should be good to go. One more key. Slide it in that keyway. Use my hammer to coax it in a little bit.